that give us the inside scoop.
Oh, sorry. No, it's I was actually up in the hill this morning. Can you hear me okay? Because you guys
Yes,
are coming
sir.
in a little.
Coming through loud and clear.
Okay, great. No, I was up in the hill this morning because my job, I'm part of my job is to do a lot of liaison with Capitol Hill and stuff like that. But there's definitely a lot of buzz. People are excited. We did very well last year. I know we didn't win, but we moved the needle to basically 13%. So this is something that Joe Biden won by 19 points and we lost by less than 6. And so there's a lot of requests for us to run again next year, but for a higher position, because anybody who runs a statewide in Virginia, the hardest place they had was where I lived. And so with that, they're doing the math, and they're saying, well, if you did this well there, if you do what everybody else does in the rest of Virginia, you can actually win by 3 points for a statewide, and statewide being, Senate. And so we're prayerfully considering it. And so we're doing a lot of things on the side to prep in case this is what we want to do. But other than that, I still have a job, so I'm delivering a lot of things out there for the military. So I'm the vice president for Navy Marine Corps program. So we're trying to put a lot of things out there to thwart the Chinese, basically the Chinese invasion of our space here, go through the skies, through balloons, with stealing technology through the a lot of the student research, right? So there's 300,000 Chinese nationals in our universities, and so that's where a lot of research is done. So a lot of intellectual property is being stolen, as well as DoD projects, because we send a lot of our projects to universities to do research. And even though it's not, by themselves, they're not classified, but when you aggregate them all, then it becomes a classified program, and then they have the plans to the F-35 strike fighter, joint strike fighter. We're also putting things on the border, because a lot of there's an uptick of 900% Chinese nationals come across, military age males come across the southern border. And, most of you guys should know your geography enough that China is not in our southern border. So, it's like the little turtle you find on the fence post, right? He didn't get there by himself. And so we got to wonder how that happened. So it's just all that, and what they're doing, the saber rattling in the South China Sea and everything else too. That's really threatening our way of life as well. So I'm delivering a lot of the technology to the Department of Defense, as as an operator, to be able. I mean, we have amazing engineers here, but they only think one way, and so when you open up their aperture and explain to them where they need to focus their attention, then they can basically hone all their skills to deliver what's important for us. But all this comes back to leadership, right? I mean, it takes leadership to get a lot of this stuff done, and leadership begins, I think at a very young age. The adage question is always like, is a person born a leader, or you learn it? And I think it's a little bit of both. If you're born with it, then I think it's just like martial arts. There's kids that are just, man, they're so gifted. They pick things up right away, and some other kids they need to be a white belt a little longer. And so we need to work towards that. But like leadership, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of teaching them, and you guys are doing it from the ground up where you are.
Yeah,
that's it.
We appreciate all you're doing, and feel a lot safer with you watching our backs there.
yeah. And
Oliver, if you could, I didn't introduce Captain Cao appropriately, so maybe you could do the honors and let all of our new members who maybe haven't had a chance to meet him personally, or weren't in Annapolis or down in Florida at his naval base.
Yeah, absolutely. And Captain, let's see, Captain Cao retired. We'll make sure Master Smith doesn't keep demoting you to commander. But
I think I said captain. I didn't think I said commander.
Yeah, no. I think out of the last 32 times, you're at 29-3. So we'll stick with captain here. But Captain Cao, one of the you have been directly involved in working with our team 3 times that I recall, twice when we did very high level behind the scenes, at Annapolis, and your insights into the leadership development process and the process that happens there was invaluable, to say the least. But really, I think one of the best was when we were down in Panama City. Tell them a little bit about your time in Panama City and what the objectives were of that training school, and if you don't mind, because I don't think we have anybody on the meeting here who was at that meeting. There, I may be wrong. There may be one or two, but it was interesting. As the general reaction before we went was that what does going to a diving and demolition school have to do with us? And then everybody who was there were just shocked at how many takeaways and lessons there were. So if you don't mind, start with that posting and tell us a little bit about what you accomplished and how that worked.
Yes, sir. I think Karis was there.
Oh, that's right. There you go.
And of course, you two were.
Yeah.
You and Grandmaster Smith.
Well, Grandmaster Smith wasn't there. That was when he missed his.
That's right. He left
because
us.
there was a blizzard. Yeah.
He left us. That's right.
Master Moody was there, but
Yep.
and Mr. Dunn was there, but Master Smith was.
I actually got certified right after that meeting.
There you go. There you go.
That inspired him to get over the hump.
I think actually, if I remember correctly, Bob went, "Holy crap, I'm glad I don't have to do this under him." To be fair, but tell everybody a little bit about that, because I found it fascinating, and of course the level of attainment that the fairly young recruits there were having under your tutelage was amazing.
Yes, sir. So at least, I should, while we're talking, I'm going to try to bring up a video if I can. I don't know how well this will work, but yeah, so the Naval Diving Salvage Training Center was where I commanded down in Florida. And there's about 12 to 1,400 students a year that train there in everything from basic scuba. So it's a 6-week course to special operations insertion. So all the Marine special operations divers, the Air Force pararescuemen and combat controllers, the Army combat swimmers, and then Navy deep sea divers and Navy EOD divers. So the guys who defuse bombs underwater and stuff like that. So there's about 1,400 students come through every year, and a lot of them are from the age of 18 to 24. That's the key note. Now there's many other courses too, and they're able to let me see. I'll show the video in a second. So basically we're teaching from never diving before, and we go, part of the training is you go down there and you kind of, I don't know, beat them up a little bit, rip off their masks, spin around, just see how they work underwater. And then afterwards, then you give them you let them work with explosives underwater. You let them use torches and do underwater welding. But what it is I always tell the students when they first come there, it's like, look, if you're weak, we'll make you strong. If you're not comfortable in the water, then after we're done, you'll be very comfortable in the water. If you're stupid, well, we'll just do push-ups until you get smarter. But what I can't do is give them heart, right? It's really the heart inside that matters. And so they need to dig deep and find the heart inside them. And it could be anything. It's just a lot of this generation doesn't know how to fail. And I think I've said this many times, where the first time I ever failed in my life was my 2nd degree black belt exam. And it was hard. I lost that. And at the time I had been, star student all the time, always doing well, and everybody expected you to do well. And then you fail. And it took me a year to recover from that, to have the courage to come back through and really pass with Grandmaster Reed and Grandmaster Smith at the time. Pass with flying colors afterwards, but to find the resilience to come back was really difficult. And we had a student at dive school. He was a recruited runner for Stanford and for Penn State, and he decided to enlist and come into the Navy. And my instructor said, sir, this guy has never seen failure. He's in such great shape. He's so smart that we don't think he's ever known what it's like to have setbacks. And they wanted a permission to do what's called redlining. And that's something, I don't condone all the time. And they had to have special permission from me. And basically, for me, anytime we do physical training, one instructor has to go all the way through, because it'd be easy if one person just, I go out there and say, okay, we'll just do pull-ups till our arms fall off. Then Grandmaster Smith comes in and say, hey, we're gonna do squats until our legs fall off. And then Grandmaster Moody decide, hey, we're gonna run until our legs fall off. Well, then it's not fair, because of course I can take them to the max, but then then I have to do the rest of the stuff. So I require for one instructor to do everything that the students do, to make sure we're not putting them under undue, basically unrealistic goals. But when we redline them, basically they were going to tag team. Basically, one guy's going to run them hard, and then the next guy's going to run them hard after that, and just to push them to limits. And this kid quit dive school. Once you say I quit, it's over. You can't, no takebacks. He quit on a run. He's a recruited runner, for Penn State and Stanford, and he quit on a run because he never knew what defeat was. And I think that's what we can teach our kids, is resilience. When they first started SEAL Team 6, Dick Marchenko didn't pick the first guy to graduate from BUD/S, which is basically underwater demolition SEAL school. He picked the guy who barely made it across, because he said, you know what, that kid knew what failure was like, and he would never fail again. And so he was right. And so this is, I think it's a good thing for us to teach our youth, is how to recover from failure, how to pick yourself back up, dust off, and keep going. I'll be honest with you. Did it hurt that I didn't get elected last year? We came so stinking close. It did, but the thing is that it's not my, for me as a Christian, God doesn't promise that we're gonna be successful. You just expect obedience, right? You just got to pick yourself up. And what am I going to do? Cry about it? You rub some dirt into it, and you keep moving. And that's what. And then this other opportunity came up where I was called up to the Senate about a month ago, and asked to run for the U.S. Senate seat. So, and since then, other senators have called me their office or their homes to ask to compel me to run. So we'll consider it. But again, I think the best thing we could teach our youth is resilience. So let me show you real fast. Let me see if I can do this. If I can share this screen real fast. Hold on 1 second while we're doing this. Doggone it. Hold on 1 second while we do this. And I think you can get a taste of what we do there.
Bob, our permission set for him to do that?
Yes, sir. Hold on.
Okay.
I guess there's a commercial in there too, somewhere.
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm gonna share the screen real fast once we're there. Okay, hold on. Let me share. Doggone it. How do I share? I know you guys.
There's a button at the
Share
at the
screen.
bottom that says share screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
But I can't get to that right now for some reason. Hold on here. Aha. Okay.
It's good to recover from failure, Captain Cao.
So unfortunately, I used to have AT do this stuff for me, and so it's not that that's an excuse, but let's see here. Can you see it now or no?
No.
Yeah.
Doggone it. I promise I'm not this much of a. Where's the Zoom thing?
Yeah, that's always my problem, is the Zoom screen keeps getting hit, and then I have to.
Yeah,
go back.
it gets hidden in there, and I don't know how to. It's hidden. I promise we're in there, and if I click on the thing, then it says, do you want to leave? Oh, forget.
Captain Cao, I have watched a number of Senate hearings with various high-tech people, and you will be the most knowledgeable of the senators.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, just say bye.
Did you try reducing the size of the Zoom
Okay.
screen?
Don't take a technical advice from Master
All right.
Smith.
How about now?
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Good.
And then if you hit full screen mode on that on the right of the photo, you should be good.
Bottom right.
Yeah,
Alright.
there you go.
Like that.
Yep, there you go.
Do you hear anything at all or no?
Not yet.
So no sound at all?
No sound.
No,
I got it. Of course, it's buffering.
well, I'll tell you what. Send me the link, and we'll post that in the.
Yes, sir.
mem-
I'm sorry. I'm so
No, that's
sorry about that.
Or if you
Well,
like, you
So
can
much
send,
for technology.
well, you can
Maybe
send
you
it to
can
me
share
and I
the
can
screen.
share it for you, sir, if you want, and then you can talk about it afterwards. If you send me that, just text me the link now, I'll share it. Because
Yeah.
I can make sure it gets done and then we can,
Yeah, that's a good call.
yeah, and then
Sorry
share
about
it to
that.
me,
Again,
share it to me while you're
Technology just
talking.
never cooperates with you. But if you think about it also, how amazing is technology? And that's the resilience of our nation, right? To be able to, even in the midst of COVID and everything else, we're able to come up with alternate ways to make it happen.
Yeah, I
yeah.
lamented many times what would have happened in
Right.
the pre-Zoom, pre-YouTube, pre-online video era if we had overreacted to that 15, 20 years ago the way we did this time.
Yes, sir. No, absolutely. And like I said, it's just sad what we did to businesses, and like you guys are the hardest ones to hit, because it's like, how are you supposed to teach kids when you're not there and check up on how they do stuff,
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's sad.
We were in a unique situation to see the radical difference between members here who are in, say, Seattle, or in New York City versus Texas, Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia, and so forth, and the radical difference in process and outcome that happened there.
Right.
And even worse in Canada.
I know. It's terrible.
Yeah. But moving right along, and we'll see if Master Moody can recover that for
Yes,
you.
sir. Let me try again. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to find the link here and send it to him on phone. But if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer anything you guys have.
You bet. Any and everybody, feel free to chip in. And Bob, we've got some new members here with us today. So introduce anybody who's here for the first time. I know we have our music school VIPs here with us. So welcome, guys. So Bob, go ahead. Do that. We're
Yeah, welcome Antonius and Valentina. Glad to have you guys on here. Let me see who else might be new that
Great to be here.
is on.
And guys, let me give you a little bit more of introduction. You guys have 3 locations, one in New Jersey, 2 in Texas. One of the 2 in Texas is a relative startup. The other is a more established location. The location in Jersey is an established location. In fact, Paul Pendergast, I saw just Paul, raise your hand down there. We're going to have to connect you guys up with Paul when you're in Jersey. He's in Brick, New Jersey. Between the 3 locations, if my memory serves well, you're at about 2,500 active students, which is translating into, if I remember correctly, about 3.5 million in revenue, plus or minus a couple $100,000 between the 3 locations. And so very impressive top line numbers. And between all of us, what I want to do is pair you up with Paul, because his top line is not nearly your top line, but his bottom line is nearly the top line in a couple of these locations. So Paul, I've been using you as an example since you share multiple locations and share in New Jersey, the difference in profitability. And everybody who's been on these meetings for a while knows, we're targeting 50 to 60% to the bottom line. And if we're hitting less than, say, 30%, we're pissed off. Paul, is that and Jan, is that a fair assessment?
Yep, sure is.
Yeah. And guys, Jan's another one you should talk to. Jan's down outside of Jacksonville. Jan, what'd you do last year? About 1.5 million in one location?
Is she on here right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
Hi,
you,
Lisa. Hi.
yeah, you're just a shadow with a window.
But yeah, she's actually
Sorry.
doing really good. They're definitely doing better this year than last year. So yeah, they're doing amazing. It's about that.
Yeah, I was mistaking you for Jan since you're just.
It happens a lot, or Rachel. So
yeah. No, it's the backlight. You know, all we can see is an
yeah. Sorry, it's.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Okay, back to you, Captain Cao. Any questions for Captain Cao so far?
I guess one thing that I would love to know in regards to just teaching leadership, Captain Cao, if there's one aspect to start with in regards to teaching individuals leadership, what do you think would be the most important?
That's a great question. I think, you know, you have different things in your life that you want to, or different, how do I say, pillars that you have that's important to you. For me, I think the most important pillar of all leadership is humility, right? Just to learn that there's always somebody above you. There's always someone better, someone faster, smarter, whatever. But really, you always answer somebody. And you guys, as you know, as school owners, you answer to the parents or the customer, right? And so that's what you need to teach them, is that no one's ever above anybody else. That there's always somebody that's higher than you. And so I think if you look at all the leaders in history who failed, right? Like Nixon, everybody, they just thought they couldn't get caught. Like no one would ever catch me, or that they think they're better than the rules and the law. And so that's the biggest thing we need to teach our kids is your students. And I keep saying kids. I mean, I know we have adults too, but it doesn't mean they can't learn. They're all your pupils. And we just need to teach humility first and foremost in anything when it deals with leadership, because you know, just like, you know, to lead, you have to learn how to follow first. So likewise, to be a good leader, you have to learn humility first and foremost, and then everything else will come after that. Because you know, that's what learning to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, doing the right thing because no one is watching. Those are the things that come with humility that you'll teach your students.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Other questions?
And trust me, Grandmaster Smith has humbled me many times as a young instructor when he does, you know, he had this, and I tell people this, he'll come up and he pinches you right underneath the armpit. Oh my gosh, it hurts like the dickens. And you're like, you try not to cry in front of everybody, but you know, but it does remind you. It's one of those things where it's tough love. I mean, but it does remind you, like, you know, you're representing not just you're representing school, you're representing the art. And so that's why it was important for us to carry ourselves in a professional manner all the time.
I found the oak-like leg kicking me in the floating ribs was a little bit more of the wake-up call, but you know, to each their own, Captain Cao. Okay, Captain Cao, on the in you know, we didn't give a very full bio of you at all, and I think there's any number of interesting things about your background, and what's particularly useful for us is the direct leadership of small teams and large teams of people, and the educational development of those future leaders, in my opinion. But you know, I'm going to go off the top of my head here. One of the first interesting things about your bio is being basically the first person to ever flunk out of Annapolis and then get readmitted, and then graduate with flying colors after the fact. And then you ended up with any number of postings. But tell everybody how your career at the end of the career, you were basically in charge of huge chunks of Afghanistan after leaving the Pentagon, being in charge of basically the U.S. Navy budget. And Pentagon liaison with Congress. Tell them about those last couple of pieces.
Yes, sir. So my last job at the Pentagon. So the two jobs before I retired was I was in charge of Navy's budget. I balanced and we wrote and balanced the Navy's $140 billion budget, and it's a tough thing, right? Because there's gives and takes, and you can write a budget just fine. And then, then the Secretary of the Navy comes in and he says, I want this. And okay, so you got to rebalance it again. Then Secretary of Defense wants this, and you got to rebalance it again. And then it goes up to the presidential budget, and then Congress has their hands in it. And even when it comes back, there's these taxes, right? So just like with anything else, the top guy will take what's called a withhold. So they appropriate all the money for all these things, and then you get the budget back, and the Secretary of Defense will take a little withhold, a little tax from it, so he can fund his own personal projects. The Secretary of Navy does it, the Chief of Naval Operations, and it goes down. And just like with any third world country, everybody takes some of the top, and by the time it gets to the peasants, they don't have anything. And so then we have to figure out how to rebalance it and get enough ships out there, enough aircrafts. Because one thing, you think it's so easy, just take a chunk off of this. Well, for example, the Littoral Combat Ship is built in two places, Pascagoula, Mississippi, and Bangor, Maine. Well, and so if you take one ship away, then you have to take the other ship away, because the congressman from that district is going to say, why'd you take mine and not the other guy? So you have to take two ships away. And it's not just the price of the ships, $545 million, but it's also the weapons that go on board, the people that go on board. And so it's never an easy thing. And even it's taken away, like, hey, let's just take out one F-35. Well, we can't do that, sir. It's $135 million, but it goes below the economic order of quantity. And so you actually pay more for less. So if you take down, if you take away one and you're not building that many, then it actually costs more. So there's a break-even point. And so those are the hard things that we spend weekends upon weekends in the Pentagon for. So I was very glad to leave that job. And I was offered a command of a task force, but my wife was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to move around. So I asked for another job, and I went to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, where I stood up a brand new division called Operational Effects, which has sensitive activities. And so we did a lot of things like sabotage, subversion, and military deception. I had a lot of SEALs and really more Green Berets than anything under that unit. And we did a lot of things to the enemy. So, for example, if I want to tear down your house, I can do it two ways. I can take a bulldozer and run it over, or I can set out a bunch of termites and let it eat away at the foundation, let it fall upon itself. And that's what we did best. How do you do red on red, cause the enemy to fight each other? When I grew up, one of my favorite movies, mine and Phil Barudi's, Grandmaster Smith, was They Call Me Bruce. It's an 80s cult movie, but this guy goes, hey, he's like, hey, who's these two guys come up and try to beat him up, and he said, oh, who's your master? He goes, oh, Master Tongue. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, we're from the same master. Two pupils are the same master, can't fight each other. So the other guy says, hey, I'm a Master Cho. He goes, great, you two can fight each other, right? And so that's I know it's a stupid movie, and it's just one of those things you have to be really bored to watch it, but it's great, right? You make the enemy fight each other, then we're not fighting ourselves. We're not in the fight ourselves. And so that's really what I did at the end of my career. I ran that, but then something happened during COVID, and the guy in Afghanistan was he was really ill, and so I had to go over there to run what's called counter improvised threats. So it's anything from improvised explosive devices, right, IEDs, to drones. Drones are a big problem now, and so I did that for the entire country of Afghanistan, and we left there. I left there in January of 2021, and again, 6 months later, we know what happened, and it was just sad to see. And so then I retired, and then I ran for office. And again, it's one of those things where all this leadership builds upon itself, and it wasn't for everything I learned as a young boy, taking martial arts. And I know I keep going back to that, but that's where you look for in your life where your pivot point was, and that was it, right? Just being able to get the confidence to stand out there and to say things and do things, and just like people ask me, well, how come you can answer questions so well on the spot? I'm like, well, you ever had students where they just ask you the most insane things in front of everybody else, and you're trying not to laugh, and you're trying to give them a serious answer, and you have to think about it. But that's really the secret to be able to speak on the spot. you teach a bunch of students and let them ask you, you know, what if I don't know, butterflies came out of the sky with machine guns. You're like, I don't know. Then I guess we're dead, right? And so that's really the resilience I learned from years and years and years of martial arts.
Right. And Adam, you had a question.
I had two questions and a comment. So first is I watched the debate and sent to Grandmaster Oliver. Your opponent, when you were going against her, she sounded like a robot malfunction. Even the comments were saying like she was all flustered because you were answering the question so good. And even the crowd was giving you a standing ovation. And your audio was not working as great as hers either. But my second question is, so I've had one student graduate from West Point, but when people put black belt on their application to go into the Naval Academy, does it take one step higher? Like I said, a student gets accepted at U of M. Everyone plays baseball, everyone plays soccer, but black belt, they show perseverance. Does it help that? And the last question is, I'm starting a podcast in a couple of weeks. It's gonna be called Leadership and Life Lessons. So hopefully it can be one of my guests. But my question is mainly, with black belt, for resumes, does it show that they look at higher because it shows they stick with someone 4 years, or black belt just not really their idea for them?
I think all those things definitely help, right? I mean, it's like being an Eagle Scout, that used to be something revered, very revered. And so likewise, we need to make the being a black belt, but really not just a black belt, but also an instructor is really going to be really big. And unfortunately, sometimes nowadays there's a lot of fly-by-night schools that everybody gets promoted, everybody gets a trophy. So I wish we would get away from that, but it's really it's not just the black belt, but hey, the second, third, fourth degree are really important too. That it shows you just didn't just do it, got it, and left, but you stayed around. And it's how they write their applications too. It's just, you can't just say, well, I was black belt. No, you have to say, I that's where I started learning, right? The moment you get your black belt, or like the moment you get an Eagle Scout or anything like that, that's when you really begin to learn and see and show what the return on investment was. I taught all these kids how to do that, and I helped run a school, or really I mentored others. It's not just hey, I got this, this gold star. It's I got it, and this is what I did with it. So you need to follow the rest of the story. And I'm sure Master Oliver will. He's more than happy to forward you my information to you, so we can if that's what you want to do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can we go? Yeah, like life skills, leadership lessons with podcast, but I appreciate it. Thank you again for the tour. We had a couple
Yes,
of bumps.
Yeah, and to add to that, Captain Cal, is a high level of mastery of something that required perseverance, required long-term follow through, and then ultimately conveying that knowledge to somebody else is the part that really is impressive to people, right? So if I'm whether it's West Point, Annapolis, Stanford, or in the job market, that I stuck with something for 10, 12, 13 years, that I taught, mentored, gave back. That's what's going to be impressive. Somebody can, has a talent, whatever it might be. In our case, they can kick somebody in the head. Well, nobody really cares about that. But the perseverance, the accomplishment, the giving back, teaching, the leadership skills developed, that tends to be the element that's most important. And Jason, you had a question for Captain Cal?
Actually, another question, sir. When we were in Annapolis last time, one of our guides was Captain Chip Seymour, and I talked to him, and he did a podcast with me, and I specifically asked him the question Adam just asked, which is, because for 20 years, he worked in administration. His job was to figure out who got accepted and who didn't. And he said that on average, he'd have 10 people, only one would get in, right? And he specifically said, I did look for a black belt. Doesn't mean I would get them in, but that person went to the higher level because I wanted to see something you've done for a good number of years, and you've done it on your own. Mom didn't do it for you. Dad didn't do it for you. You did it. You have good grades. That could be because mom helped you with your homework all night, right? So he specifically said that. And again, for 20 years, he was doing that at Annapolis. So I just wanted to echo that too.
Yeah.
And I would just like to add a few things, Master Oliver. I've had the privilege of watching Hung Cao from a young schoolboy and up through middle school and high school, and turn into one of our top instructors, and then his Naval Academy training, and his perseverance on coming back, and basically when they accepted him back in, what he had to do to get back in was a test of perseverance, because really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, I don't think up until that time they ever had anybody come back or accepted anybody. But after they did accept you back, and because of how you reacted when you came back and your accomplishments at the top of your class all the way through, after that coming back, that they instilled a program that did allow people from then on, that they had this second chance operation in place. Am I stating that correct?
No, sir, you're absolutely right. Thank you for honoring with that. Yeah, it's just one of those things where someone's got to set the trend, right? And so that's what you want to teach your kids to do, is to not take no for an answer, and be the trendsetter, be the the trailblazer, the person who makes things happen. Just because someone said no, or for me, my motto has always been, I'll find a way or make a way. And so that's what we need to teach our kids too. It's just that taking no as an answer is not good enough. And you keep I don't say pester them, but keep pushing and pushing and pushing, because if there's an opportunity, if there's that one chance, that means there's a chance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I ever told you, Captain, obviously, since I got to see you come all the way up through the lower belts, all the way through your black belt and everything, and put you in our instructor training program. And when you passed all of your tests with honors, we had a special award we gave, kind of like our A students at the graduations. We would call the outstanding students of the month. And he was always passing with outstanding. And then when he got his black belt, he was testing for his second degree, and he had, anybody else would have passed, but because him always being outstanding, I knew he didn't apply himself and achieve the level that he should have achieved. And a lot of people were shocked when we failed you, but for me, it was a test to see if you were really, really serious about your martial arts training, and could you come back and really show us that you can be that outstanding student every time. And when you did it, it was, that's why, when you came back and tested, you didn't just pass, you passed. And it's always the hardest to get outstanding at the black belt level testing. It's easier in an underbelt setting to get outstanding, but when you get to black belt, it's hard enough for most people just to pass it, but to pass with outstanding. And that's really why we didn't pass you, because you weren't at that outstanding level that we thought you could achieve. And the thing was, you proved us right way beyond that with your military training. And after you graduated from Annapolis and you became an underwater demolition expert diver, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on some of this, but one of the most decorated underwater demolition divers, and had more dives or more demolition dives than I would say one of the top, if not the top, in the Navy. Maybe tell everybody, that's, guys, you have to realize you're going down underwater. Underwater is bad enough. It's hard enough to defuse a bomb above ground, but now you're underwater and you're down and real deep. These aren't near the surface. Sometimes they're far down there. Maybe it might be interesting for them to hear a couple of those stories of.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. No, thank you. First of all, there's one thing I did pick. You said I wasn't one of your best students, but my paycheck never really showed that. I'm just kidding. No, I was very fortunate to.
The fact that you had a paycheck showed that.
That was it.
No, I was very blessed. I got to do a lot of things. I recovered John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife, his sister-in-law. I have a couple of the airlines that crashed, a couple of jets that crashed, but and those are always hard times, right? You're going down there and you're bringing people really bodies back for closure, and those are all these things that haunt you. Later on, I diffused IEDs on the battlefield, a lot of them, or sometimes what we did is we had to piece them back together, and you're digging through body parts to find pieces of parts and evidence to see how it works and how it functions, so that you can keep it from happening again. Diving wise, I mean, yes, we've gone deep. I've gone to 300 and something feet. That's on mixed gas, and then beyond 300 feet is actually saturation diving. So that's where you're using you're staying down there for long periods of time, because you might as well if you're already down there. So for example, if you go to 1,000 feet, it takes 11 days to come back up to the surface. So they put you in a chamber, and then they slowly recompress you. It's a 1 foot an hour, and then but really there's some other scary things too. It doesn't have to be deep. It could be under 5 feet of ice, for example, because under 5 feet of ice is pitch black underneath there, and so people get lost very easily, and you can't find your way back, because a lot of times when you breathe out your air, the air that comes out of your compressor, it's warmer, so it'll pool up there, like kind of like the way mercury does. And it starts melting just a bit enough water of the ice away that it pools. It starts pooling up there, and in a panic, you would actually think it's the exit, and so and you get lost and run out of air and just die. And so we can't put ropes down, because the icebergs kind of they shift and it'll cut the rope, and so you have to go down there. And what we do on the surface is we shave away concentric circles around the hole, and then like wagon wheels all the way across, so that when you drop down, you can see your way back, because where you shaved off the ice, where you shoveled off all the snow and then shave off the ice a little bit, the light shines through. So it's a really weird. It's a weird feeling to be under all that ice, and so that's what we did in the in the service of this nation. We did a lot of very secret things underwater as well. I always tell people that it was the saturation divers that single-handedly won the Cold War for us. What they did underwater to help us win against the Soviet Union back in the days. We played a very high stakes game of poker, and we knew exactly what hand they were holding because of what these guys did in the 60s and 70s. So, again, I was very blessed to do so many things. I worked with the FBI on many years. I was in the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I was with the agencies. I did a lot of things with the SEALs and the Green Berets. And again, it's just, you jump from one thing to another, and it's neat war stories, but it's, at the end of the day, it's about leading people, right? I mean, I didn't do it all myself. My guys, the men and women under my command did all that stuff. And it's to be able to lead a team to go do that, to really do things just as, like, I don't know, we set back the Iranian ballistic missile program by a year or more by what some of the things we did, and that's all I can say about that. Is we severely set back the ballistic missile program significantly by some of the sensitive activities we did. And so those are, but again, it's I didn't do that. One person can't say they did it. It was a whole team, but that team depended on a leader to have the vision and the ability to do that, and also take the blame, right? The leader's job is always take the blame, right? Because when you're high-fiving each other at the end of the day, patting each other on the back, then that's the easy part. It's when things go very wrong that you have to step up and say, hey, the buck stops with me, and then I'm the one responsible. And that's the integrity we teach each other, our students, is when something goes wrong, step up and take the blame.
And Master Oliver and I both had the privilege of attending your retirement at the Naval Academy, and that was quite impressive. Of course, all the medals on your chest are also quite impressive. But the send-off they gave you for your retirement was very, very impressive. But even your guest speaker, and I know he was such a big supporter of you, and from what I remembered him saying and some of the things you said is he was the one responsible for getting you to even run get into your throw the political hat in there was Oliver North, who was a very famous a war hero too, that I had a lot of respect for.
Yeah. Well, let me, Captain Cao, we want to be respectful of your time. I know you're running a bunch of different directions. And what were there some specific leadership lessons that you learned by running for office? I'm sure that was a completely different experience than your experience in the military for better.
Oh, yeah. The first thing, if I ever wrote a book, it would be everybody's a consultant, right? Everybody wants to give you their 2 cents and hey, you know what you should have done is, and if you won less than one election, then I really don't want to hear from you. And so, right, just like with your schools, there's how many parents come out, hey, you know what you need to teach these kids is that, come on, unless you've done it, please, I mean, you're respectful. You're like, oh, thank you. Let me take that into consideration. But really, there's a lot of people that advice is free, and so you get what you want. And so, look, you guys know what the right thing is. You know what works for you. You know what works for your schools. Then trust in those in your instincts. And I always have 3 people in my life, right? For when it comes to anything I do. And it's the first thing is a mentor, right? You need some mentors. Again, Grandmaster Smith and Master Oliver and Master Moody have been great mentors of mine in the last few years also. And you have all these mentors to teach you the way. And then you have the students, you have your disciples because the best way to learn is to teach. And like I said, just what I really learned about martial arts is when I became a black belt and having to teach it. And that's when the learning really begins. And really that the third person is that accountability partner in your life, someone to keep you straight, someone to say, we in the Navy we call running mates, but somebody that runs alongside you to say, hey, I don't think what you're doing is right, or I don't think that this is what your original goal was, or it's not looking good with you hanging out with that one student all the time. And so those are the 3 people I always have in my life, because it's so important to have that mentor. It's so important to have those students or disciples. And it's very, very important to have that accountability partner, somebody that you trust that won't tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Yeah. Yeah. And so I've not too charitably referred to what you described as the bozo explosion of consultants, people who are mostly good at pitching you on buying their services to get bad advice. So it sounds like the political arena is overflowing with those as well. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. So from a standpoint of just interacting with the wide range of people you had to interact with, were there behavioral changes that you had to consider, or how was that environment? Well, I mean, you have to be careful what you say. I mean, not that you shouldn't change who you are just because you're doing something, because then you won't be genuine. Sure. Just like being an instructor, you have to be who you are. You are your own person. And so just trust in yourself and your instinct. Now, certain things you got to be careful, because people are always recording you. Today with the iPhones, right? Everybody's walking around. Yeah. I mean, they could stick this literally right in their pocket and the camera's out and they're talking to you. And some people are not that conspicuous. They stand there with this phone there. You're like, it's like, why don't you hold it up so you can see me better? But but again, we should never say, how do I say that? It's just like standing in front of the classroom. What you say in the classroom, you should say outside, because you never know going to a restaurant if one of your students is there and they're like, I heard him curse like a sailor, and so that's you have to carry yourself like that 24/7. And again, it's just discipline in how you are, because anywhere you guys go, your students could be there. If you're losing your temper and doing stuff to people, or yelling at them and or just berating someone, then you're really not living up to the same code that you guys are teaching your students. Yeah. And so, just like with sailors or anybody else, right? Your students, they may not hear everything you say, but they'll watch every single thing you do.
Yeah, yeah. I've often described that as you have to be completely congruent. Whatever it is you're saying you are, and whatever it is you're teaching other people to be, you better be congruent in yourself to actually be that. And we have all kinds of stories about why you can never, you're never off stage. You know, if you think on stage, off stage, you're never backstage in any kind of public arena, whether you're running a school or you're in a command position or in politics. It's the old thing of, always behave in your private life as if it was going to end up on the front page of the New York Times or the Washington Post. Because if there's anything you wouldn't want the public to know about, then it's probably something you shouldn't be doing to begin with.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very, 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 very good. Anybody have one last question for Captain Cao before we shift gears and let him get back to his busy life?
Of my day job.
Your day job, yeah.
Of your job.
I have one, sir.
Captain Cao, before she jumps in, I want to re-invite you to our Black Belt retreat this fall up in the mountains. We keep looking for an opportunity to promote you beyond the the rather lowly rank you left with on the way into Annapolis. But if it's in any way possible, let's get you up to I think we're going to be in Breckenridge this year. In fact, I see Amanda and Steve Christensen. What is our date this year, Amanda and Steve? Or Allie? Anybody who knows more than I do?
As of right
November
now,
3rd, 4th, and 5th.
November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So if there's any way, shape, or form for you to make that, we would love to do it. And I promise you, we will promote you beyond your last promotion with.
I'm just worried about having to acclimate myself to the high altitudes.
I don't think it's nearly as difficult as the 400 or 500 feet underwater that you've accomplished. Go ahead, Karis.
Hi, Commander Cao. Yeah, so a conversation that our
Captain.
staff has
Captain.
Captain Cao. A conversation that our staff has been having lately is about keeping our standards high, even though it seems like more and more it's counterculture, and the discipline, the expectations for good behavior, even just being on time. There's less and less support from teachers and from parents, I should say. When I talk to teachers, they feel less and less support from administration, that sort of thing. So, we've been kind of talking about how it's tough, but we still need to keep our standards high. One of the things I remember most about walking through and doing the tour down in Clearwater with you is that you said you kept your standards high for the training, no matter what. It was regardless of gender, age, any background, anything. It was the standard was high because that's what benefited the individual, but also the group. And if you lowered it or, made any exceptions, it would be detrimental to the group. And that always stuck with me. And as our culture has changed as of the last few years, I've often thought about that and wondered, how did you navigate through that? How have you kept those standards high? And what would be your advice to schools like us who are really just trying to really combat this culture lately?
No, that's a great question, because honestly, like I said, I think I said this before when I gave you guys the tour, was like the sea is unforgiving, and things like hardship and war, it's indiscriminate. It doesn't care who you are. And so we're preparing people for war. And likewise with you guys, you're preparing these kids for the challenges of real life. And I know some of these parents are I don't know. I mean, again, I blame it on this generation that they all got trophies as kids, and now they're adults, and they're like, well, why shouldn't my kid get this too? And that's the problem we're having, is that these kids that got all trophies all the time for participation are now adults. And so, but your job is to develop leaders in society, right? And be ready for challenges of life. And maybe it's something that you have a contract with the parents, where you say, hey, here's our side of the deal, where we will develop your child, but then we need buy-in from the parents too, that you have to allow us to discipline them. You have to allow us to hold them back if they're not ready. This is not one of those things where, hey, in 2 years you automatically get it, whether you're good or not. the standards are there for a reason. And, you know, I guess turn it back on them. Like, what do you want your kid to get out of this? And then you say, well, in order for them to get there, you know, they'll say, well, we want confidence. We want them to be self-assured, that we want them to complete things. Then, okay, well, we can't teach them that unless, you know, you partner with us on this. And maybe it's a contract when they sign their thing, it's a contract on their end to meet you halfway. Also, that means, hey, you have to get your kid there on time. Got it. If there's sometimes that things happen, right? I live in Washington, DC. I mean, this traffic is, you can never, you just can't anticipate it. You always add an extra 15 minutes just in case. But, you know, yeah, they're going to get punished, but, you know, it's just one of those things to learn. They'll be stronger from it, and just let them learn from the mistake. Trust us. We've been doing this martial arts schools have been around for so many years, for 60, 70 years at least. I don't know the number, but they work for a reason, right? I mean, it's not soccer practice. It's not football. This is personal conditioning and leadership development.
Yeah. And I might remind everybody of the book, The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt, which is a really good recommended read. We've even required all the black belt parents to read that and Free Range Kid, both very good books. But Karis, I might add one thing, and I'll let Captain Cao get on with his day and turn you over to the capable hands of Master Smith, Master Moody. You always want to be clear in your values, and to the extent that you're attractive to an audience, you're also repellent to an audience. And the worst thing you can do is try and be all things to all people. You're much better to stake out a position, be really firm in that position, and then let some people, you know, run away screaming, and hopefully make your position really clear early on. The idea that the customer is always right is certainly not true in an educational environment. You want to be very clear on what you are. You want to have excellence in everything you do, and you do not want to accommodate every whiny mom and one thing or another who comes in and wants their kid treated in a unique way. What you want to do is have a very clear expectation. And of course, we know what our standards are different for year 3 and year 4 than they are for year 1. But you want to be very clear on your expectations and don't bow to the whims of what tends to be a fairly small minority that are going to, I find we attract people who aren't thinking that way as much anyway. But the minute you capitulate to that, you start to water down what you are. Would you agree with that, Captain Cao?
Yes, sir. I absolutely do. Don't change your values because it's worked for us this long, right? I mean, it's worked for us. Look at all of us. It's worked for us so far. So why would you change it? You know, kids are still kids, and martial arts is still martial arts, and it revolves around discipline.
Yeah, and if anything, they're not getting it anywhere else. They need to be getting it with us.
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, thank you, Captain Cao. Everybody give him a round of
Thank you so much.
appreciation here.
Sir.
I will hope that I have your permission to wrangle you into our environment more often now
Yes,
that
sir,
you're
absolutely.
not actively running for political office. I guess the next round would be what, 2024?
Yes, sir. It'll be next year. But
Okay.
if you say you're running by law, you have to file within 5 days. So we're still thinking about it until this summer.
Yep. I got you. Well, I hope you win this time, and you certainly made a good run for it last time. So congratulations.
Again,
on
going
that.
back to it's not about just winning, it's giving people hope. And likewise with you guys, you're giving these kids hope and a vision. And so there was a lot of people, I mean, I'm still getting stopped today at the supermarket or the gas station or wherever, people thanking me for running. And because we moved so many people, we gave them that hope they needed. And sometimes it's not about winning or losing. It's just showing who you are and showing them that, hey, we have all the same values here. And so, and failure is just never getting up, right? Failure is not from never falling down. It's from never rising after every fall.
Absolutely right. On that note, thank you, Captain Cao, and I'm going to have to leave you with Master Smith and Master Moody.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
Captain.
very much.
Thank you, Captain. Okay, guys. Master Moody, I don't know what was on your agenda. I was going to, I've been doing some progress checks with some of the members, and there was a couple things that I wanted to remind everybody on to make sure that that we're green and growing. And everybody knows our saying there, you're the green and growing, which means your active count is going up, your gross is going up, your student value is going up, and or you're ripe and rotting, which means active count is going down, your gross is going down, or your student value. So that's why I put together that stat sheet. And if you don't have that stat sheet that has what last year's average was, what January through December of this year on leads, appointments, intros, enrollments, renewals. Then after renewals, you're going to need your total gross, your active count. And it's important for you to understand your numbers. Don't just look at the numbers, but be able to, the purpose of doing your numbers is so you can take control over what happens with them. You know, every time I go through a school's numbers, I can see what we call the holes in the bucket. In other words, why isn't their school doing more? And then the schools that are doing more, why aren't they netting more? And so you have to go through your numbers. Once you find what's making those numbers grow, then you got to go back and do your ROI, your return on your investment in your marketing, what that student value is, and then what is that net to the bottom line? Some schools are grossing a certain amount. You know, I was talking to one of our schools that was just coming up in the numbers, and his gross was around 50,000, you know, relatively new. But what was happening is that at 50,000, his expenses were so low that he was in reality a $70,000 school as far as net goes. So don't always just be concerned about the